This is the OFN Today on the Ourlads Football Network as we talk Detroit Lions football with Jeff Risdon at the Lions Wire at USA Today. And Jeff also, of course, has a very popular podcast on YouTube, the Detroit Lions podcast. Jeff, it's got to also be the most popular podcast over the past week since Matthew Stafford decided, or mutually, Matthew Stafford and the Detroit Lions decided it was time for him to go somewhere else.
There is no sleep for Lions this offseason between the complete regime change and now there's going to be a quarterback change, and Matthew Stafford will not be back. He has formally, well, as you said, it's a mutual decision. The team and he have decided that it's time to end after 12 years, and that's quite a shock because as long as I've been covering the team, and I've covered them in one capacity or another since 2011, I've been a fan since well before that, but I've only ever covered Matthew Stafford as the quarterback of the Detroit Lions, and it's going to be a shocking change not seeing number 9 under center next year.
His contract, talk a little bit about that, because I was looking at it and I was like, I could probably spend about another 5 or 10 minutes figuring this out, but I'm going to have Jeff on anyway. So,
all right, so yeah. So he is due $33 million in salary in 2021, and it goes a little bit lower than that in 2022. The Lions save $14 million by trading him. They have a dead cap that they're going to eat whether they trade him or not because of the way that he restructured his contract a couple seasons ago. And the way that the bonuses are structured. So he is due $5 million on the 5th league day of the 2021 season. That happens to be March 22nd. Okay. So you will see him out of Detroit before March 22nd. They can't officially agree to any deal until March 17th, the beginning of the new league year. But that's a pretty stark deadline to move him for another team, because they're not going to pay him $5 million to not be on the team in 2021.
Well, that's good. Because as a Jet fan, knowing that Deshaun Watson and those talks, I wish there was also a deadline, because you kind of want to, you're gonna enjoy to an extent. Okay, where are the possibilities and all that kind of stuff, but it's nowadays it's just there's so much stuff that goes on, social media and so forth. I get a couple of days or a week and I'm already over it, and I'm sure the Detroit Lions fans are pretty happy that they know that there's an end date.
Yeah, and it's a very different situation from Deshaun and Houston. This is one that's mutual decision. Stafford, my guess, and I don't know this, my guess is that he initiated it, that he's like, okay, we got a new coach coming in, we got a new regime. I've had my time. I don't really want to learn another new system here in Detroit. I'd like to try to win somewhere else. The Lions appear to be headed for a rebuild. They haven't officially called it that yet, but let's face it, this team has won 12 games or 13 games in 3 years. They're not exactly breathing down the playoffs, even with the excitement around the Dan Campbell hiring. It was time, and I think he knew it, and I think the organization knew it, and it's a good time to do it. Based on the comments that are coming out of Houston that Deshaun Watson is still not available for trade, it makes him a very attractive quarterback for a team that's looking for a veteran that can come in right away. Yes. And there are several teams, the Jets being one of them, the Colts are another one, Dallas is another one if they decide they can't afford Dak. The 49ers, who knows what they're going to do. The Washington football team is certainly a candidate for it. There's a lot of teams that could use a Matthew Stafford, and he would make them much better than what they are right now. So it does seem to be a seller's market for Detroit. There was some consternation about, they're saying they're going to trade him already. Well, that sort of defeats their leverage. Well, the circumstance sort of dictates that they still have some leverage on that. And it's a good time to do it, and I think they're going to get a pretty handsome return for Matthew Stafford.
Really? Okay. Well, what do you think that is? Because as, Watson, I was thinking, well, you're probably talking about 3 first rounders, and then what else happens with whether they want Darnold or not.
Right.
That's probably the realistic number. Stafford, I was thinking myself, well, definitely a first, and then what else? So What are you thinking besides 1 first rounder? And where does that first rounder, does it have to be somewhere, or could it just at least be a first rounder no matter where it is?
I think they would really like to have a pick that is near the top 10.
Really?
Obviously, the Jets are picking second. That's clearly not going to happen,
Yeah.
and nor would I do that if I were a Jets fan. I wouldn't
Yeah,
expect
sure.
that if I were Detroit. It's a deal where I think, let's use Dallas as an example. They have the 10th pick. If you give the 10th pick, they also happen to have to need to in Dallas to get rid of some salary cap space. The Lions don't have a single wide receiver other than Quintez Cephas under contract for next year. They have cap room. Let's say number 10 and Amari Cooper for Matthew Stafford. And maybe the Lions send back a third or a fourth round pick, something like that. That's the kind of deal that I think that they would expect. If it's San Francisco, then you're interjecting Jimmy Garoppolo perhaps into the deal, or Nick Mullins maybe, although I would hope not. There's some options with that in terms of a first round. And if it's a high pick, I know the Denver Broncos have expressed some interest, or at least their media suggests that they will have some interest. It could be a case of they actually pick right around the Lions, where you would trade Stafford and you would get back their first, and you might have to send them a fourth or a fifth next year or something like that, just to make it out. I'm not sure that Matthew Stafford brings back a top 10 pick on his own in return,
Sure.
but there are ways, as you know, to work around that.
Yeah, I mean, because again, look, let's just say Houston screws it up, and they're very capable of screwing it up.
The smart money.
Yes. And the Jets are like, hey, wait a second. We don't know what they're going to do. And we have an opportunity here where we could still get a quarterback with another several years at a pretty elite level. Um, and I would guess that the Jets would probably say, well, look, we've got Seattle's pick.
Right?
And would you be interested in Darnold in a Stafford for first round Darnold kind of deal? Do you think that's something that could make sense for Detroit?
I would certainly consider that if I were the new regime. I don't know how they feel about Sam Darnold. He's an interesting situation because he's sort of Matthew Stafford like 10 years later, and that he joined a very bad team that did not help him, didn't do enough to help him, but has shown some ability in his years with the Jets. Not a great deal. I believe he
No.
was Pro Football Focus's least rated passer last year. And in the games that I watched, he didn't look all that impressive. But it's too early to just completely close that door on him. There is still something there to try and work
Yes.
with. I would hope that if the Lions did make that sort of deal, that they wouldn't just rely on Darnold, that they would still try to aggressively attack the quarterback position. But it's better to have multiple options there. There's another school of thought that if they get a second first round pick and they will package number 7 with it and try to move up to number 2 to the Jets or to number 3 or 4, where they can get that second quarterback that comes off the board and get their pick of the second quarterback that they like, either Zach Wilson or Justin Fields. That is floated out there a lot. Again, that's just what we're hearing. It certainly doesn't mean that that's going to happen, but that's a plausible scenario in my mind, anyways.
Yeah, and because you would think look, we know if the Lions, when they trade Stafford,
right,
we would guess that chances are the quarterback that'll start for them week 1 in 2021 is going to be the quarterback that they take in the first round, whoever
I would
is.
hope so. Yeah,
we would agree with that, right?
They still have Chase Daniel on the roster. Hopefully, not much longer. He did not show anything as a backup, and he has a cap-friendly cut hit. So they could be looking to bring in a new quarterback and also a new veteran mentor, a low-priced late round. Tyrod Taylor has mastered that. Did it both in Cleveland and in Los Angeles, and he might be available again. Who knows? They're going to need that kind of guy as well. But yes, I would expect if you're drafting a quarterback in the top 10 these days and he's not starting by October of the rookie season, you've probably made a mistake.
Yeah, and if you're going to take him in the top 7, you kind of want him to start week 1. To tell you the truth,
hope so. Yeah.
Unless there's an injury situation. That's why Tua, I think, even would have started week 1 if it wasn't for the injury situation and so forth. Okay, so is it too early to talk about any specific rookie quarterbacks that either the fans, yourself, or anything that might make sense with what the Lions are going to try to run in their offense next season?
With a new, so Anthony Lynn is the new offensive coordinator, the former Chargers coach. Before that, he was the Bills coordinator and running backs coach. Dan Campbell has never called an offense before. He is the new head coach. So we are expecting, and he was an NFL tight end. He's big on blocking. The offensive line is actually in pretty good shape. That's probably the position of least need on the entire roster. So they're fairly set there. So they can do a number of different things with it. And a lot of the guys that they have, guys like Frank Ragnow, Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, who was very good as a rookie last year for most of the year, are fairly scheme versatile too. So they have some potential to do the sort of the offense that Lynn ran in with the Chargers. I keep wanting to say San Diego, and I know that's not right. It's Los Angeles, where they will now they'll need some receivers for that. Kenny Golladay is an unrestricted free agent. Marvin Jones is an unrestricted free agent. Danny Amendola is also an unrestricted free agent. I would expect one of those guys to maybe come back, and my money would be on Marvin Jones. Of any of those guys, he will be the most economical bang for the buck that they will get out of that. There's a lot of people who expect Amendola, quite frankly, to retire. He's been hurt a lot. He's been great in Detroit, and I think he would be ready to move on. Sort of in the vein that Stafford is like, I want to see something better. And Golladay, they tried to negotiate several different long-term contracts with him in the last year. He didn't want anything to do with it with the old regime. Based on the reports that we've heard that he turned down, he will not be back. I can't fathom them paying him if he turned those down then. Before he got hurt and played just 5 games this past year, I can't fathom them paying him that. So they're going to need some wide receiving help too to make whatever they want to do work.
Well, if I'll tell you right now, if I'm a team like the Jets and I make a trade with Stafford, I'm with all the cap space the Jets have, I'm going, hey, Kenny, you want to come along for the ride?
That would be very, very smart because he's a good receiver. I think he is somewhat quarterback dependent as a receiver, much more than a guy like a Keenan Allen or a Michael Thomas in New Orleans or any number of guys. He had the lowest separation per route run of any receiver in the NFL over the last 2 years.
Wow.
Yet he's still really good at catching. He loves the contested pass, and Matthew Stafford is not afraid to throw the contested pass. That's one of the hallmarks of Matthew Stafford. It's what has helped make him great at times. It has also gotten him into trouble at times. But I would love to keep those two together if I could. That makes a lot of sense.
And that's interesting because that would lead me to believe if I'm a team signing Kenny Golladay, I have to make sure that I've got a quarterback that understands.
Yes.
All right, this is your number one guy. This is how you got to get him the ball. You got to trust that when he's not open, because he's not going to be open a lot.
Right.
You got to trust him.
A quarterback like Josh Allen in Buffalo will not have a problem trying to get the ball in there. That's
true.
A guy like actually Tua in Miami showed a great reluctance to try to force the ball into traffic. Might not be a very good fit for him there.
No, a good point. Oh, and I would also think that, all right, let's say you make a deal with a team, say, like the Jets, and then you've got that additional first-round pick. You were saying, well, maybe you move up. But with only 5 picks, it is also going to be very important. You have everything is new. Everything's going to be new. So it's so important when everything is new that you try to stockpile as many draft picks as you can. And you would think at least a couple of times in this draft that before or during the draft, the Lions are going to trade down to try to accumulate more picks.
I would certainly think so. And the new general manager is Brad Holmes. He was the director of collegiate scouting for the Los Angeles Rams for several years. They haven't had a first-round pick in a long time, and Holmes was still able to find a lot of very impressive talent later in the draft. So it would not shock me at all if the Lions trade their second and third-round picks and acquire more picks in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th rounds. They desperately need impact talent on defense. You're probably not going to get that in that realm of the draft, but it's better to hold 3 lottery tickets than 1. And I think everything we've heard about Brad Holmes is that's sort of his philosophy on it. So I wouldn't, if you're doing 2 or 3 round mock drafts, probably project some trades for the Lions there because I don't think they're going to be picking where they pick.
Now, you said that the Lions have some cap space, and obviously when they trade Stafford, that'll help. But just looking at the cap space, when you check it out online, it looks like they're pretty much even with cap space. So explain what their actual cap situation's like.
Yeah, they're gonna get some money freed up, obviously with Stafford. They're gonna make some veteran cuts. I do not expect Jesse James to be back.
Okay.
There are a couple of Chase Daniel is another one that probably will be moved on this offseason. They have a decision to make on Halapoulivaati Vaitai,
Oh yeah.
who was a big time free agent last year. He played poorly, then got hurt, then played worse, and then got hurt again. They're on the hook for a lot of money for him, and they would love to have somebody take that off their hands. But
They have a lot of dead money on him, right, for the first year.
yes, yeah, they do. So they have some ability there. Again, they don't have a great deal of flexibility. That's one of the reasons why I think that Galladay is going to go, just because you're not going to get your bang for the buck there. They are, I think they're 11th or 12th in available cap room, but you're right. It's not. They're not going out and buying 3 or 4 starters this offseason. They're going to be able to fill some holes with some modest gains, and I think that seems to be their strategy rather than swinging for the fences with one big free agent, as they did with Vaitai. The year before that, they did that with Jesse James. They gave him a ridiculous amount of contract for what he had. And he's just not lived up to it. So I think they're going to be fairly conservative in their approach to free agency. But again, it's a new regime. We'll learn it on the fly.
Yeah, I was taking a look at the contracts, and I was going, man, there's a lot of bad contracts here. You know, whether they're bad or whether they're even the good players, it's just they're difficult contracts to get out of if they want to try to save some money. And that's the reason why these guys, that's the reason why there's a rebuild.
That's exactly right. That's why Bob Quinn is now unemployed.
Yeah.
And nobody was banging down his door either.
Okay, Deandre Swift. Now he made his bones really as a receiver more than anything. But is he now going to be ready for a full-time number one role, or is that his role? And the Lions are going to at some point have to bring in someone that'll be 1A, 1B, or maybe be the lead guy and have Swift be kind of like the backup third down back.
Yeah, it's a good question. We are hopeful that he will be the 1A next year.
Okay.
He split it sort of last year. It was a backfield by committee. That's what Matt Patricia from the Belichick tree, that's what they do, unless they have Derrick Henry, like they did in Tennessee. They didn't have that. They had Deandre Swift, Kerryon Johnson, and Adrian Peterson. Peterson was either really good or really bad, depending on the carry. There wasn't any. He never had like an easy 4-yard gain. Everything was either like a 9-yard, I'm breaking 3 tackles, or I'm going down as soon as I get the ball. He could be back, but I kind of am skeptical about that. Kerryon Johnson, he just can't stay healthy. So the big hope is that Kerryon Johnson emerges as a guy in the vein that Anthony Lynn had in with the Chargers with Melvin Gordon, and then Austin Eckler as a feature back, a guy who gets 70 to 80% of your carries and your touches, but then you have a capable backup who can come in and do similar things. Kerryon Johnson is somewhat capable of it, and they'll give him a shot to be that guy. But it wouldn't surprise me if they bring in another, and this will be a street free agent or an undrafted rookie or somebody of that ilk, somebody that they think that they can merge into that, because they've spent a great deal of day 3 draft capital in recent times on running backs, and it has not worked.
Yeah.
And I can't see them doing that again.
Well, it's interesting, but you mentioned, okay, well, we know, or usually guys like Campbell, the new head coach, are going to be, smash mouth kind of guys, and especially the way that he was talking at the press conference, you would think,
your kneecaps, Greg.
So you would think, okay, well, that means they want to make sure that they're tough up front, so they have a good offensive line, defensive line, and so forth. But that means you also have to run the football. So. But then again, he came from New Orleans, and they were pretty good offensively with mainly one running back, Kamara. So It's possible that even though you might think he'll go in a different direction strategy-wise, you have to find out, you have to look at where did he come from, what kind of success did he understand in that system, and especially with the limited cap space and draft capital, it might make sense that Swift's our guy. He's going to be the main guy, sort of like Kamara, and then like you said, hopefully Kerry Johnson's like our Latavius Murray.
Yeah, that'd be great. That would be wonderful. And then if you get a quarterback who can be We'll call him Jameis Winston as the successor to Drew Brees, whether they go that route or not. If you get that level of quarterback play, and Jameis could be available, who knows? They could probably do a lot of things that would look very familiar to Dan Campbell from his time in New Orleans, and also before that. Remember, he was the interim coach in Miami.
Yes.
Near the end of the Ryan Tannehill era there, so he does have some experience with different types of offenses. They've got Deuce Staley was the running backs coach in Philadelphia. He chose to come to Detroit rather than an offer from Chicago to go there. Hank Fraley is the offensive line coach. He was phenomenal in his first year in Detroit. They were very keen on keeping him on the staff, no matter who the head coach was going to be. He's back. That's going to help a lot. So they do have the core in place to have a good running game. They really do.
By the way, what did happen to Kerryon Johnson? And is part of the reason that there's a new staff, because we went over this, the whole running back debacle situation, and why is Adrian Peterson on this team? And I'm just, from the far, even towards the last 3 or 4 games of the season, I'm going, why is Adrian Peterson still getting touches with this team?
That didn't make sense to anybody.
What is going on? Is Kerryon Johnson a bust? That's what you look at from afar.
Yeah.
So
Kerryon, he's had injury problems. He had fumbling problems as a rookie.
But he was healthy last year, wasn't he?
For the most part, yeah, he was. He didn't practice a lot. That's just sort of the state that he's in, but that doesn't mean that he can't play.
Yeah.
It was weird that they gave up on him. Look, this was a team that drafted 5th-round draft picks 2 years in a row on running backs. They already had Johnson in place, and
the Jets have one of those guys.
Yeah, they do, and
we
the
like
Lions they cut both of them. One of them being Ty Johnson, who was better than Kerryon Johnson, quite frankly, in his time in Detroit, and has been since he's been gone too. They tried weirdly to make punt returner Jamal Agnew, who was never going to be a cornerback. They tried to make him into a wide receiver. Wasn't really good at that, so they tried to make him into a running back, and he wasn't good at that either. It's just we all in Detroit want to blame the prior coaching staff, but there are some personnel limitations with what they've done too. But the hope is that the new regime will figure it out.
Yep.
Ride the good players and look. Adrian Peterson was actually a very good welcome presence in the locker room. He was somebody that they needed. The prior coaching staff liked to run out anybody with a little bit of personality, but they just couldn't do that with Adrian Peterson because of he's AD. I mean, people know that they couldn't do that to him. I think he had a very positive influence on guys like Deandre Swift, and Swift actually talked about it in an interview late in the season about how much he was learning from him and how much he appreciated it.
Okay.
But I agree with you. You can do that without giving him the ball 12 times a game.
Yeah. All right. As a Jet fan, we had Frank Gore, so we had a lot of that going on too.
Yeah.
But coaching staff is also
very similar situations. I would say that Peterson was probably a little bit better than Gore last year, but nothing to write home about.
No. Offensive line now. So the mainstays right now, the future is Ragnow, Jackson, Decker.
Yeah.
Is now Crosby.
Tyrell Crosby, he played very well at right tackle. He was not supposed to be playing there, but he has earned a spot. He is a perfectly capable starting right tackle in the NFL.
Okay, so so basically what you're looking at now is another guard. Ibushi's a free agent. You talked about Vaitai. And again, he might get out of that contract. Who knows? But he was really more of a reserve with the Eagles anyway, so he could still be a reserve with the Lions. Right. And you just go, look, that was the old regime. This is the new regime. We'll tell you where you're going to play. So is that really it? Is maybe just to go out there at some point and get another guard?
They do have a 4th-round pick from last year, Logan Stenberg, who did not play as a rookie. Okay. He was a healthy scratch. Now here's the problem though. He was a healthy scratch when the team was signing guys off the street to play ahead of him.
That's not good.
No, Joe Dahl was still around, and they'd probably like to have him back. He's a capable guy. He is much better as your swing reserve, your interior guy, your 6th lineman. But he's capable of playing center or guard. But so Stenberg will get a chance. Vaitai will get a chance to be in that role. If Vaitai is healthy, I think he's probably your starting right guard, and they kick Jonah Jackson back to the left side where he was better anyways.
Okay.
And their line's okay.
Okay. Special teams. Now, this was the bright spot of the Detroit Lions special teams this past season. Now, Prater, unfortunately, didn't have his best year, but still hit 6 of 10 from 50+, which is always a valuable kicker to have around. but Jack Fox is turning into one of the better punters in the NFL. And Agnew, we know he's been so dangerous for so long, but Agnew's a free agent. Prater's a free agent.
Yeah. Prater will. I expect he will come back. I will also expect that he has legitimate competition. He did not have a great year. As you mentioned, he did do very well over 50 yards, and he now holds the NFL record for the most successful 50-yard attempts. And he beat Sebastian Janikowski, who had the old record, and he did it in 17 fewer attempts to get to that record.
How old is he, Prater? Is he mid-30s?
He's 36, I want to say.
Okay.
Yes, he's still got leg. That's for sure.
Yeah.
He did lose some leg accuracy last year. They also have a venerable Don Muehlbach has been the long snapper in Detroit since 2004. Wow. He's been on a one-year contract every year. There are hints that they might be moving on from him this year too. So there could be a new flush everything out. Agnew as a return man is incredibly frustrating because he is either really good or really, really bad. And there's not a lot of middle class with him, and he doesn't really have a place in the offense. So it wouldn't shock me if he is singing for his supper this offseason as well. If they do bring him back, it certainly will not be where he is just handed the job.
Okay. In our last few minutes, we're going to talk defense. Before we do that, just want to remind everybody if you want to. If you like the program and you like all of our, because we actually have already done, I think this is the 6th off-season show, so we have many more to go leading up to the NFL draft. This is a big time of year for us with our lads, of course, the draft guide and so forth. So please subscribe to our channel, like the channel, you know the drill. Jeff, because you guys have done a great job over there building up subscribers and so forth. And how long has it taken you guys over there? How long have you been? Did you remember how long ago it was when you were kind of just starting out and just hoping that you'd get traction?
Yeah. So we just did episode 326 this week. And I think probably the first 15 or 20 episodes that we did was maybe, I don't know. I had a little bit of a following from covering the Lions for a long time, so that helped a little bit. But I want to say that we were under 100 views until probably about the 21st episode. So it's a slow build, and now we get.
How many years has it been?
It's been I want to say we started in 2014, 15.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been a few years.
All right. Yeah, it takes time. There ain't no question about it.
It absolutely does. It keeps getting better too.
Yeah, and now hopefully. With a new regime, because this is what happens when you have a new regime. You just got to hope, cross your fingers, and
I tell you, the energy that is with the new regime, bringing in all Chris Spielman coming back as the assistant to help hire. Spielman is my football hero. I grew up in Northeast Ohio in Ohio State, and he is my Ohio State jersey. He was my Lions jersey when I was a kid too. I'm old enough to have watched him play in both. He's the reason why I'm from Northeast Ohio and a Lions fan. He and Billy Sims converted me over when I was in my formidable years.
Does Spielman have that? Was he the last part of the last team that won a playoff game?
Yes, he was. He was the only win in Super Bowl era history for the Lions in the postseason. They won once. They beat Dallas.
That's right. Okay.
Badly. They spanked Troy Aikman. In fact, they took his first pass of the game back for a pick six.
What time of career was that for Aikman?
91 season. So Dallas then the next year went on to win the Super Bowl.
Okay, so that was just about when they were ready to start taking off. Okay.
The Lions unfortunately ran into the Washington Redskins in the next round, and Washington handed them their lunch, and then they went on to beat the Bills in the Super Bowl.
Who was the quarterback for the Lions?
That was Eric Kramer back in the day.
Kramer, okay.
Yeah,
I love going back and. I can get lost on YouTube looking at all the class. I could just sit there if I could sit there all weekend and watch, even though they're just, especially Detroit Jet fans. It's not like we have a whole lot of great historical playoff games, but I still love it. It just brings me back to a day when I still thought football was awesome back then.
Oh yeah, watching Herman Moore and Lomas Brown and guys like that, Chris Spielman, Barry Sanders, obviously. And doing what they did, that was a very fun team. Unfortunately, I was away at college for most of the peak time for that team, and I went to Ohio University, which is like sort of between Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Cleveland.
Okay.
And I never really got to watch a lot of Detroit football when they were really, really good. So I've missed out on that. So I'm ready for it now, Greg.
Yes,
I'm ready.
absolutely. And Jet fans are definitely ready for it too.
Yes. Absolutely.
The hire of GM, head coach, grading it as a fan reaction, is it B plus or A?
think I think it's probably a B plus. I think there's an unknown commodity with Brad Holmes. The fact that he's never worked on the pro side of things before.
Okay.
They did bring in John Dorsey, the former Browns general manager. They brought in Ray Agnew, who is the assistant VP of personnel and assistant
Dorsey's
GM.
On this. Okay, what's he going to do? Player personnel?
He's going to do pro personnel. Dorsey is
That's
senior
a nice
personnel.
Hire.
He is the guy who, first off, he's at the Senior Bowl this week, handling the things down there for the Lions while they're still hiring coaches here. But he's going to help evaluate talent. He will probably use his connections around the league will be invaluable in dealing with Stafford. He's made big trades before. This is a guy who made the trade to get Patrick Mahomes. He's done a lot of different things. He also chose Baker Mayfield in Cleveland, which wasn't necessarily the popular move.
Dorsey. Yes.
Yeah. I'm glad that he's a GM. He has some skills that bother me as that, but I think in the role that he's in, he's great. So I think that's been fairly well received. Dan Campbell is football guys love him because he came in and he said he's going to knock you down and bite your kneecaps off on his way back up. The press conference was epic. I encourage everybody to watch it because it is really entertaining. Whether you care about the Detroit Lions or not, it's just a rollicking fun time. He doesn't have head coaching experience, is bringing in guys around him. Lynn has it. They're trying to support him up as much as they can with that. Aaron Glenn is the new defensive coordinator. Everybody knows him.
That's a good hire, too.
Yeah, that's a very good hire. And this was a guy who was seen as a person who was going to be interviewing for a head coaching position.
Yes.
So
interviewed with the Jets.
Did. Former Jet. So, you knew you were getting there. It's very positive so far. With everything that's going on, the staff is being very well received. Unfortunately, they dropped the bomb that Matthew Stafford won't be back, and that's been sort of a giant wet blanket on everything because Stafford has been the face of the franchise forever, and it's going to be very difficult to replace him. The head coaching staff, everybody's very happy with the staff and pretty optimistic about it. But I think the Stafford trade situation made people realize that maybe it's not going to happen overnight, and that's a little bit of a downer.
All right, now quickly over the last couple of minutes, the defense. Aquara had a huge season. He's a free agent. Any chance that they can? Do they have what it takes to bring him back?
They do, and one of the things that they have is his brother.
Yes,
he was sick last year. He was hurt most of the year. They want to stay together. They've made that very clear. Romeo played very well. He got, I think it was 10.5 sacks.
Yep.
Did very well in a scheme that relied on him to win on his own almost exclusively. We're very hopeful that Aaron Glenn will bring in a scheme that is much more aggressive, much more assertive. The old regime wanted very much read and react, very passive. Okay, the offense is going to do what they do, and we're going to try and stop it on a reactionary basis. That clearly didn't work. The defense was wretched. They did not rush extra pass rushers enough. They didn't blitz well. They would line up their cornerbacks on the outside and press man and then not let them press. Instead, try to turn and run when you have Amani Oruwariye, who's a very good corner, very capable starting cornerback, but he doesn't have turn and run speed. They were so poorly coached. It's truly inconceivable how bad the coaching was on the defensive side of the ball for a defensive mastermind, allegedly, in Matt Patricia. It's so they have a lot of questions. The scheme, first of all, I think they are going to run more of a three-man, a more traditional 3-4 front, where you have your fourth guy as right up there on the line as your stand-up, strong side end, your jack. They got away from that a little bit last year. They do have Danny Shelton in the middle. He's a good fit for that. He'll be back. Trey Flowers was very good. He's a very good football player. He's not an impactful sack guy. He's a really, really good defense.
They missed him. I mean, that was a huge loss.
He'll be back, and that will help a lot. He's a very good fit in the transition for it. He can play that Cam Jordan role that you saw in New Orleans, and he'll be really good at that.
Okay, so still, so what you're saying is that you'll probably be more because the team over the last few years seems like they've been more 4-down linemen. You're saying
Yeah,
maybe
I
three
expect
down
him to
linemen.
be a little bit more athletic, and aggressively athletic.
Okay.
And Romeo Okwara is great. Getting Julian in there as a in the Trey Hendrickson role. If they can't lure Trey Hendrickson because the Saints can't afford him, that's certainly something to watch.
Okay.
The Saints have a few guys that could wind up in Detroit because they simply can't afford to pay them. A guy like Alex Anzalone as a middle linebacker, I think, would make a lot of sense too, because Jared Davis is a free agent. He has never lived up to the first-round hype. He is not nearly as terrible as what Lions fans will tell you he is. And Dan Campbell talked about him in the introductory press conference as a guy that he really wants to have back. He does have the ability to blitz the A-gap and to turn and run. He was just simply asked to do too much too often. And failed at that. And I think simplifying things for him a little bit could still rescue him as a valuable player.
And the secondary is a big issue, isn't it? I mean, Okudah had a disastrous rookie season.
Yeah, Okudah and Oruwariye will be the starting outside cornerbacks for better or for worse. I happen to think they'll both be better. Okudah got off to a rough start and he got into his head. The scheme wasn't real conducive to what he did. I expect him to be better. We have experience with that in Detroit. Darius Slay was rotten as a rookie. He got benched, and everybody was happy that he got benched when his rookie year. He came back the next year and played much better, and then the year after that, he was a Pro Bowler. We're hoping that happens with Okudah too.
Well, Aaron Glenn is a very good defensive backs coach. So
absolutely, and they brought in the defensive backs coach from the Rams too, who's very well acclaimed too, who helped among other things turn around Marcus Peters. So there's a lot of experience, a lot of hands on. He is a key. Tracy Walker is the free safety. He had a miserable season last year, being too passive, played out of position. He has a chance to be a very good and impactful safety, and I'm very hopeful that will happen under the tutelage of the new regime too.
He's bring back Harmon.
Probably not. I think he's a guy that they wouldn't mind seeing going. He missed too many tackles for the role that they had him in. Will Harris has been awful. I expect him to be cut, quite frankly. Third-round pick from a couple of years ago. I'm continually wondering if he's ever seen a football game before, because he doesn't look like he plays when he plays. That's been very disappointing. So they got some work to do back there.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot of work that still needs to be done on this roster. It's not going to happen overnight, but there's still a lot of excitement, of course, with the new regime, and hopeful that the guys making these decisions. You got Dorsey. That's a huge deal as well. It's going to take a couple of years, but it'll be interesting. First of all, the domino that has to fall is the Matthew Stafford deal.
Right.
Before I let you go, though, Jeff, quickly, Martin Mayhew.
Yeah.
I actually thought that he was a little underrated. I didn't think he was as bad as people made him out to be. I'm glad he got another opportunity.
I am too. And it wouldn't surprise me if he had some sway in trying to get Stafford. Remember, he's the guy who drafted him with his first ever draft pick.
Yeah.
And Washington happens to need a quarterback. They do have some assets that the Lions could use. So I'm very happy for Martin Mayhew. He absolutely deserved another shot, and I'm glad he got it. And I'm glad he got it in Washington. I am not, in any stretch of the imagination, a football team fan, but I kind of like what they got building there. They're a fun little team to watch.
Well, hopefully the Lions will be a fun little team to watch as well.
That's the goal. If you're going to be 3-13, at least be entertaining. The Lions have not been entertaining in years. Jim Caldwell was not necessarily a vibrant guy, and then Matt Patricia just sucked all the life out of everything. We're ready for positive. We're ready to go 4-12, but be entertaining and amusing, and at least to have a reason to watch. And that's a positive. The arrow is pointing up, even if the winds don't point up necessarily right away.
Well, Jeff, I look forward to talking to you again. Definitely at some point around free agency and the draft, or for sure when Matthew Stafford is officially traded. So, as usual, great job, and thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
All right. We'll talk to everybody real soon with our next show coming up. Actually, is going to be on Monday. Teresa Walker is going to join us from the AP, talking Tennessee Titans football. For Jeff Risden, I'm Greg DePalma. This is the OFN Today on the Our Lads Football Network.